Thank you for joining Leadership Rediscovered, a podcast devoted to all things leadership. I'm Laura Siebold, founder and president of Shine Consulting, and each episode I interview different leaders from different industries and different walks of life to learn their unique definition of leadership. And today I am really excited to talk to Cheri Satterfield, who is the president and owner of Tuscan Sun Spa and Salon and Med Spa.
Yes, and Med Spa.
And many locations too, I might add.
Yeah, we have about 7 right now.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be asked.
I'm really excited. Before we hit the record button, I was sharing that I've lived in West Virginia for 20 years, and I have really been paying attention to you because you've had a lot of business growth and success in that time. And it's really impressive. It's quite a feat. I think when people don't own their own business, they don't maybe understand just how hard it is to stay in business. And if you look at the metrics, there's a lot of statistics out there around, how many businesses don't make it to 5 years and how many businesses don't make it to 10 years and beyond there. So I think you've done such a great job of exceeding some of those negative statistics and being successful. So I want to hear about that. But first, can you just walk through your story, your leadership journey, help people get to know you a little bit better?
Well, I've been a jack of many trades throughout my life. And I've been a school teacher. I came out with a business degree and an interior design minor, went and got an education degree because I'd had a little girl and thought that staying home would be great. And I just knew that what I taught for a while, but I started into the video business years ago and had a journey through that led to in the years when video and tanning was really big together. Had tanning in with our video stores, and people would always come to me and say, I wish you did this, I wish you did that. And I thought, and people always called me a cosmetologist wannabe. I always did my girlfriend's hair and on my kitchen as our kids were growing up. I loved that aspect. I loved it. And so that kind of was so I thought, I'm going to open a spa. And everyone said, no, a spa will never make it in West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And I remember us opening at Emily Drive, the first one, and everyone was waiting. And I would always travel, and I would say, why don't we have a nice place to go? And so we opened our first one. And
what year was that?
That was in 2004.
Wow.
I know. I can't believe this is 2024, and that was 2004.
That's amazing. 20 years.
And I remember my dad, who just passed away in August, and him hanging that first little brass plaque that said, I remember ordering it online, and it said Tuscan Sun Spa, and I placed it. And there was a feeling that came over me that I knew it was going to be something special. I know everyone probably feels that, but I had been in, and I just knew that it was going to be something special. I had started with my managers from the video stores.
Oh my gosh.
I sent them back and paid their schooling to go back to school when I knew video was going out.
Wow.
And we started with this core of great people.
Oh my gosh.
So I always think that's that core of people. Some of them are still with me.
Wow.
They started with me when we were 16.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And they're still with me today, that core. Most of them.
That's
Some
amazing.
of them have moved away, but that core is still with me today.
Wow. And and how did you start? What kind of services did you offer when
we
you first
started with nails and massage and body and aesthetics. I even went back to aesthetics school myself.
Wow.
And because I was like, if I'm going to lead a spa, I need to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And people laughed at me. They were like, what are you doing? You're going back to aesthetics school. You've got, you've been in bit, and I said, yeah. And I was always interested in skincare. Then I realized that aesthetics school here could only take you so far. Mm-hmm. So I took my team and we went to Dulles in Virginia, and I got them medical training, and we got laser trained, and we started we had the largest laser, we still have the largest laser center in the state of West Virginia.
Oh my gosh, that is wild.
We own more lasers in our company than And because I used to even teach some doctors how to use lasers because they were at that cutting edge of what do lasers do. So that, and then everyone would say, I wish you did hair. And everyone said, don't get into hair. There's drama in hair. And I loved hair. And I still love hair. And there wasn't drama.
You did it in your kitchen.
I think I love, when people say but there's drama in any workplace.
For sure. For sure.
But I think if you surround yourself with the right people and positive people that want to really be good, I don't care what it is, but if you love what you're doing, that is the key.
Yeah.
And we have people that love what they do, and I love them, so I started studying, what do we want to do with hair? Yeah. And I didn't want to be a mall type of shop. So I went to Aveda in Minnesota, and Aveda would fit us. It was spa. It was they're now completely vegan.
Yeah.
And that was before even Estee Lauder had bought Aveda.
I didn't know they bought them. Huh.
Yes.
Interesting.
Estee Lauder owns Aveda. Huh. And so I was back in Aveda times when it was just, it was, I really got to know the brand, the way the color works. And I still believe that there's no color in the world that surpasses Aveda color. And so anyway, I said, we're going to be Aveda. And it was a lot of processes to get okay to be Aveda. So it was funny because yesterday I was speaking with the color trainer that trained our little babies that started in Aveda in 2007. She came in and trained them for a year before we ever opened.
Oh, wow.
And one of them two of them are my right hands today.
Wow.
And she said, I was there when your little birds were just hatching out of the nest, because now she's with a big hair extension company. Oh. And they're learning all these new hair extensions. And
oh my gosh.
She said, I told the company that I launched her baby birds with hair color education. And so we ended up opening our hair salons, and they're still growing today, and they do great work.
Yeah. So so Emily Drive in Bridgeport was your first location, but you have how many now? 7?
We have 7.
Okay, so take me real quick on that journey of because I do think it's interesting. First of all, opening up one salon is a big deal. And you did kind of a big bang approach. You weren't like, let's just do nails and see how that goes. Sounds like you were like, nope, let's do pretty much the full suite of what would have been offered in a spa at that time.
Yeah, I think we were always, that's one thing about me that I'm never happy. I said that before. I'm always wanting change, and it can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because I think you always have to be at the cutting edge of what is changing.
Yeah.
And that's just my personality. I just constantly am. And I've had my team and me have been through some changes where I made wrong decisions, but you had to get back up on your feet.
Yeah.
But I always say that's what gives you experience.
For sure.
When someone says, what gives you 25 years of experience? I say 25 years. Yeah. So when you get that under your belt, you can't shortcut those pitfalls. And
no.
I always make the joke of crying by the dumpster in the back of the store. That has been me at times.
Yeah.
And my team has seen me, but not to the fact I've always tried not to fall apart in front of me. Yeah. My poor mother has seen more than anybody. But the change has been, I wanted to grow.
Yeah.
And I knew that we had something if, we were on the cutting edge of med spa at the time. And I knew that what we had as a team. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to grow. And I made a terrible decision by getting into a partnership in 2008, and I ended up getting out by the skin of my teeth in 2011. But it taught me a lot.
Yeah.
It was the hardest lesson that I ever. 2008 was the crash of the stock market, if you remember.
Oh yes, that was terrible.
And it was a time where if you wanted to grow, it was going to be tough. It was just a tough thing.
And people weren't spending money on extras.
I remember when that happened, being at Emily Drive, and it was crickets. Like,
I bet.
you could, their phone was, I mean, it was like when everyone was losing their 401ks.
Yes.
And so,
Me included.
Yes. I mean, well, and then
I very much remember that time.
But that's another thing that time teaches.
Yeah.
You know, right now we're in an economy where you're seeing the interest rates, you know, high, but I've seen them higher in my lifetime.
Right. People are complaining about 8%. You're like,
yeah, not that I like it.
Right.
But you know, my son is newly in business, and I say, you know, honey, things will. It goes in cycles.
It does. You
got to ride it out.
Yeah.
And I have ridden out a lot of hard times.
Yeah.
And I think it puts, I'm not really sure what it does, but the partnership taught me a lot to trust myself.
Ooh, yeah.
Because
I was curious if you are willing to share a little bit more about just.
Yeah, I think I did it because I wanted to grow, and I said I would never do another partnership. I will sell fruit in the stand on the road before I would ever, because I think there's always someone that's going to outwork or knows or has their passion for their business.
Yes.
You know, and this was like my baby. So when someone has these weird ideas of what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and you're like, what are you talking about? And don't view people as people.
Yes.
And your team like they should have been viewed. But
different values.
My team stuck with me, man. They saw me through it, and I'm very grateful for. It was a tough time.
I bet
it was really tough.
How soon into it did you realize this was not
like a month,
right
30 days?
I figured
30 days, and I kept thinking. How do I get out of this? Thought it was going to get better. It was going to get better, and it didn't. It got worse and worse and worse. I almost lost everything, and so by the skin of my teeth and some friends, I got out. I got it back, and had to rebuild the stores, and so that was a time I don't like going back. But the thing about it is, it's nice for me to look back now and say, you survived that.
Exactly.
And I think that's who I am today. I'm not the same gullible girl or woman that I was then.
Yeah, it shaped you.
Yeah. One time I heard Dr. Phil say that he came from kind of the background that I came from, that everyone is wonderful. Yes. And you come from this piece of, you're wonderful. And I like that about myself because I see the best in people all the time.
Yes.
I always see the best.
Yes.
And there's something in my brain that I don't see the worst in people. But that can get you.
It can.
That can get you.
Because not everybody is the best.
And so your heart can get broken. You can get taken advantage of. So I'm more guarded now before I make a decision, and I watch a little bit. And believe me, I'm still wrong sometimes, you know.
Well, but you don't know till you try.
You don't.
And I appreciate you sharing more details about that story, because I think there are a lot of lessons that can be pulled from it, regardless of. I'm always fascinated by people that do go into partnerships, because it does seem really complicated to me, and it's like a marriage but on steroids, because I feel like it's even harder to get out of than a marriage, and there's even more financial implications sometimes, and in just all the things that have to line up. I mean, it does almost feel like it's a miracle when I do hear about successful partnerships, because I know how much has to work and how in sync people have to be to get it to actually work. So from a business perspective, if there's someone that's listening that's thinking about that, I think it's helpful to be very aware of what they're getting into. But even just anyone who is in a situation where they're thinking about going in a different direction. It could be, I want to go into a different job or a different career. Thinking through, that's why I asked how long did it take before you knew, and you sharing that something that you learned from it was about trusting yourself, and knowing that you can trust yourself, but probably listening to your gut too, and recognizing, wait a second.
Yeah, I listen to my gut now, and if my gut is pulling back at something, not out of fear.
Yes.
I think a lot of us have fear.
Oh, for sure.
That, you think, oh, can I really do that? I try to work past that gut part.
Yeah.
But if I'm having a gut of, this doesn't feel right, but I really want that, but it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I don't go past that. If something's saying this does not feel right, time is my friend.
Yeah.
I don't jump.
Ooh, that's smart.
But now there's times where I'm fearful and I go, why are you being fearful?
Yeah.
Because you're doubting yourself that you can actually do that. Well, then you're going to have to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And then get past that fear and jump in.
Absolutely. That is a huge distinction to make.
That's hard to know whether the gut is telling you, don't do something,
go down this road,
or you're just fearful because you're afraid you can't learn it.
Yeah. And you don't trust yourself maybe, and you're thinking about all the ways that it could go wrong. And I do think that's what holds a lot of people back. I think there's a lot of people out there that want to start their own business and they're so afraid of it failing or not going the way.
And somebody said to me the other day, oh, I would be embarrassed. And I said, well, you're never going to be good in business then. Because, honey, my butt has hung out there more than once being embarrassed.
It's a very humbling experience, isn't it?
I mean, even when you said, do you want to come? You've been sick. When I said I never, because I have been humbled. I never spit in the wind.
Yes.
And when the girl said the other day, I would be embarrassed. I said, well, honey, you're going to be embarrassed a lot because you're not going to... Name me the perfect person that's made the right decision at all times.
You're absolutely
They're
right.
lying if they say, or they're a narcissist.
Yeah. Or both. But it's so true. And I like the saying, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn, because I do think regardless, I mean, that experience, something else that I think is important about that is that you got out. You didn't, because I think sometimes people will force themselves to stay. They'll say, I've got too much invested in this. I have to make it work. I have to figure it out. And I think sometimes that is the right choice. But you also said, you know what? I got to pull back out of this. This is not
I knew
not the
in
right
my
choice.
gut that I couldn't sleep at night.
Yeah.
And during that time, and I always tell this story, that was probably the best lesson I ever had, because I ended up leaving the company for like a month before I got a gigantic text that said, please, God, please come back. I saved the text.
Good.
But I left and was like, if I lost everything, I have my character.
Yes.
And I could lay my head on the pillow at night knowing I did the right thing. I did everything I could do.
Yes.
I made some stupid contractual decisions.
Yeah.
But I got, past that. So.
Yeah.
But I could lay my head. So that's always a decision maker for me.
Yeah.
If whatever I'm going to do, someone may not like it, but I always say, if I can lay my head on the pillow and knew I did the right thing, that's the best feeling ever, because you can live on a beach.
Yes.
You can live in a cardboard. You can live in a room this size. Yeah. But be happy with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That is the biggest gift you give to yourself.
It is. And I think that's where you get confidence from too, especially when you have to make hard decisions of, you know what? Ultimately, at the end of the day, this is the right thing to do, and I have to do it, even if I'm going to hurt someone's feelings, or even if someone's not going to like
or
the
it's
decision.
going to cost us money.
Yes. That's another one.
I mean, you hear all of this Botox right now. Bad people getting bad Botox. I can name doctors around here that are bringing in Botox from other foreign places that they don't get it from the company. They don't have the serial numbers. And, I had somebody said, well, this person, they're selling. I said, well, we're not, I want that serial number.
Also, you get what
tracking,
you pay for.
And,
keep that in mind too.
Yeah. And then, and then that came out. So I think that's something that people that our customers and our clients and our patients, they know that we don't cut corners.
Yes.
We make sure that things are third party tested.
Yes.
That I hope that they have the confidence in our company and the buck stops with me. Yeah. So whereas if something would happen to one patient, it stops here. So.
Absolutely. No, you're right. And that is important. And that's what you build a brand around. And that's how you differentiate from other people. And I'm sure partially, not the sole reason, but I'm sure it contributes to your success too.
Well, you just try to make the right decision.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, easier said than done
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got past 2011.
Yeah.
How did you then open up
Well,
more?
we started with I in 2011 I started with 2 stores, Fairmont and Clarksburg.
Okay.
And then I opened Star City, Morgantown.
Yeah.
And after going through that partnership debacle and all of that, I went to a banker who I still have a great relationship with, and he knew me and he believed in me, and I said, I need help. I want to open this store. And it was First Exchange Bank in Fairmont.
Aww.
And Brent Skidmore, God bless that man. And he gave me a loan, and I we had so much, and I remember laying the tile floor in Star City. And of course, I had to have a knee replacement after I did that this year. But that was in 2015, 2016.
Wow.
And I opened Star City, and people accepted it really well. And it was, and then right before COVID, I bought this building in Cannonsburg.
Yeah.
And
now you're in another state.
Yeah, we're in another state in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And we opened, but it was a long haul because Cannonsburg was right in the middle of COVID, and you couldn't get workers. And then so that was in itself a big feat. Yeah. But Cannonsburg got open a year and a half ago, and it's a beautiful, beautiful salon and spa and med spa. And so it's kind of trailed up. Yeah. During COVID. I had a former person that I'd bought product from.
Yeah.
His wife had a big day spa in Albany, New York.
Okay.
And he said, Cheri, I think this spa would fit you. And I said, oh my God, Albany's, that's too far.
Yeah, that's not.
It's out of my thing, out of my wheelhouse. And anyway, I was bored during COVID and ended up driving up when everything was shut down. Yeah. And saw this gigantic 18,000 square foot beautiful spa, and she wanted to retire, and I ended up getting that one. The month that I closed, the big competitor in Albany called me and said, would you be interested? We want to retire too.
No.
Would you be interested in looking at, and they were the biggest salon in Albany. And I thought, well, you should own your competition, right?
Yeah, this is great.
So they were more hair, and the day spa was more spa.
Yeah.
And so we ended up getting Roomers, and it's a 26 chair hair salon. It's gigantic.
My gosh,
it's beautiful.
That's huge.
And it had a men's barber shop. It was a very beautiful building. They had done a beautiful job. Both of them were. So then in Saratoga Springs, which kind of made a triangle almost like our West Virginia stores.
Yeah.
The biggest Aveda lifestyle salon in Saratoga, she wanted to retire. It was just all this boom, boom, boom. And she called, and so we ended up getting Saratoga. So it really makes it easier because we have 3 in this triangle in Saratoga Springs, which Saratoga Springs is a really neat town. It's where the horse race, they're having the Belmont Stakes.
Belmont. Okay,
the Belmont
very cool.
Stakes is going to be there in June 1st. They have the big horse tracks.
Nice.
And beautiful town. But I love Albany. I love the people. And I think that was another thing when I went up there. I just felt this instant feeling of being home. They are very much like West Virginia and Pennsylvania. Really? It wasn't like New York City. And the people were warm, kind. They're into the equestrian, and they're just a great, I don't know, it's just a nice town. And I really enjoyed them. It felt right.
Yeah.
And so it's been good.
That's amazing. I'm just blown away. I mean, I just like the way you talk about it is like, oh, and then we did this and then we did that. But like, it's a big deal to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. I mean, that's a lot. And I'm just curious how you have balanced keeping the growth going, but not too much or not to a point where it's unsustainable. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, it makes a lot of sense. And, I'm at that question in my life right now of what makes sense to our company. And right now, we're trying to, I took our cool sculpting specialist to Albany a few weeks ago, and she said, wow, we're trying to develop their med spa in New York. And there's a lot of med spas that are being bought by venture capital and private equity. Lots of them. Huh. And they think that they can open a med spa and the med spa is just going to run, but it takes years to develop people that can run lasers and nurses that can inject good injections.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time. And when I took Kristen with me, she said, wow, she said, you don't realize it's taken years to develop this team. And it's going to take us several years to get them the way we want them.
Yeah.
And so you do have to ask yourself the quality versus just throwing something out. And I've never been one that can just throw something out and think. So it's taken me now 3 years just to develop. They now have cool sculpting. Okay. They have nurse practitioners doing Botox and all that. And so we're when you say, I don't think there's so much to grow in today that it's constant. But you do sit there and go, do you want to grow bigger? I don't know right now. I don't know. I think we've got our hands, when you say management wise, I've got another reason I did expand for our team was so that we could, like, it's hard when you're one. I know you said you had worked years ago in a salon and spa. It's hard when you're one because can you do 401ks? Can you do health insurance like we do?
No, I got a lot of free services because she couldn't even afford to pay me much of a salary. So she'd be like, whoa.
Right. And so, when someone says, well, what fueled your growth? A little bit of my personality and of my team wanting to grow. And I wanted places for them to grow into.
Yeah.
I wanted them. And sometimes I think most of them know that I've wanted them to grow. But it's also the benefits that we could give.
Yeah.
If you don't grow, you can't match a 401k.
Yeah.
You can't give health insurance.
I mean, that's not typically something that's offered in your industry anyway.
And so we do try to offer that, and vacation and sick pay and things that most stylists don't get if they're just winging it on their own.
Yeah.
So we hope, and that was my hope, that we could be a company they want to work for.
Well, and stay with too. I mean, the way I listened to you talk about your team, and again, this is a higher turnover industry typically where people don't stay for a super long time at one spot. But I definitely get the sense that you have a commitment to your team and want them to stay and know that they can stay and have growth and not have to leave and go somewhere else.
Yeah, we've really tried to, in our culture, to put that in as growth and moving up and opening places for them to grow. And education is really big. We constantly, if someone comes to me and says, I want to do permanent makeup or I want to do microblading, we make sure they get the education so that they can do those services that give them a higher ticket, and they're able to do more. Like right now, hair extensions for us is a big thing that we're implementing in the stores, and they're able to know that but not just do it, but know that they're good in it.
Yes. And they're doing the best. Like, I can tell you the quality piece is really important to you too, around what's the best quality product that we can have. And if it's, there's a lot of options for many things, whether it be hair product or, different extension companies that you can partner with, different ways of doing it, but just thinking through what's the best option, what's the highest quality option. And I think that matters too.
I think it does. And I take a lot of heat even from my husband, who's my CPA, and that's fun.
That's a whole other partnership.
That's a whole other partnership. But it took. I carried salaries before we opened Canonsburg for 1.5 years, so that when they went to Canonsburg, they were trained. But when Canonsburg opened, and the 5-star reviews started coming, I knew I'd done the right thing, because it's like opening a restaurant.
Yes. Yes.
You open and you have people that don't know what they're doing. You're going to have 0 5-star reviews.
Yes.
So that set that store in motion. And but it costs you a lot, and you have to do a lot of sacrificing. And that's what I said, the growth for the company right now is at that point where we're like, okay, let's calm for a while and get ourselves better and better and grow our teams and
be the best we can where we're at right now. But I love that you're not afraid to invest in your people, because I do feel like a lot of companies struggle with that. We can't afford to pay for someone to go get that training, or we can't afford to develop our team. And it's like, but what's the flip side of that?
What's the flip side?
You don't invest in them.
But that's the thing that I think the multiple locations has given us.
Yes.
The power of the team. I always tell about the water buffalo story of, in the savannah, the water buffalo stand back to back in a little circle. But the one water buffalo if he gets mad and says, I don't want to stand together as a team, he goes out to the edge of the savannah and the lion attacks him because he's by himself. Well, our team backs each other. And I always think about that, that the reason they're offered what they're offered is because they've stood together like a team. And
that's huge.
And when people say, oh, when you have a team, they're people, and I've had customers come in and say, well, I had my nail appointment, and I said, I have to say, I wish we were machines, but we're people, and they have children, and they have illness, and things happen. We tried our best to move schedules to fit it, but our team, they're human beings.
They are.
They're not machines. They do great work, but sometimes things happen. They have deaths in their families, or they have children that get sick. And
just like the rest of us miss our appointments sometimes.
Yes, sometimes. And
we forget that.
Right, but we do our best to work everything around that.
Yeah. I'm so intrigued too how you keep a certain culture, or maybe you don't. I'm curious maybe I should step back and ask the question of, do you try to create more of an intentional, consistent culture across all of your locations, or is it more open to letting each location establish their own culture, own way of doing things?
I think we have a general culture. We always, leadership wise, I think we go in we always have goals. I always say that, it's like the football team on the field. Here's your goals for the month. Here's what we want to achieve.
Good.
And so everyone knows what their goals are. They shoot for those goals, and they're rewarded if they hit their goals. So it's like, no one puts a football team on the field and says, hey, just do whatever you do want to do, run wherever you want to run, and we're going to get there. Right. We don't do that.
You'd be amazed how many companies are run that way, Cheri.
I've seen companies run that way. I've had people say, come in and help me, and would you run my show? And I come in and go, but they don't want to change. That's the kicker.
Yes.
Structure takes a hardship. Not hardship, but a lot of work.
Investment,
It's much easier to sit and let just everybody do whatever, And we have goal setting.
That's great.
And our teams kind of, I kind of go by the old version that keep your old-fashioned values. They never go out of style.
Oh, I love that.
And I believe that sticking with the old and true in that aspect.
Yes.
I have zero tolerance for certain things, and I'm very understanding. I understand that we're all human beings and we all run into things, but I try to keep the culture pretty much clean as far as the way they treat their customers, the way they uphold their own personal standards to work for us. And do they fit in our team? And I've had that happen where I needed back in, when I say back, when I'm still learning, I'm still learning. I'll never get there,
Always.
Laura,
Oh, I
like
know.
I said. But one time I hired someone, and it was a questionable hire. And one of the girls, or one of the women, said to me, "Cheri, would you want to work with her every day?"
Oh.
And so that's what I measure now. That I'll never forget her saying that to me. Is that someone, if I'm working in a workspace, that I would close workspace, that I would like to work with. So, we do turn people, even though I would love to have a lot more people in our spas working, right now is
it's hard
hiring
to get people.
You're out there really looking for quality workers. We make hard choices. I made one this morning. Mary, my right hand, called and I said, "No, let's not." And she was like, "It was very iffy." But I have to say, I've had iffy interviews that I've taken chances on that have turned out wonderful.
Yeah.
So you never know.
You never know. Well, it's hard. I mean, it's like a blind. It's like going on a blind date with someone and then having to marry them right after. I mean, you're kind of taking a gamble. You're not quite sure because sometimes people are really good at presenting themselves a different way in the interview than how they actually act once you hire them. So, but I mean, those are good lessons.
But I will say, you ask, are they every different location does have a different feel.
I bet. If you walked in, even you walking in or me walking in, you could feel it.
I feel in Clarksburg, they're so veteran because they were the first spa and some of them are still there.
Yeah.
That honestly, I could walk out of the building without a manager and they could probably manage themselves. Yeah. Then you have younger teams that you're still working with more.
Yeah.
But I have to say this, that I am blessed. I mean, I go into every location and they are awesome. They're a great group of people. They're very team oriented. They do great work and they're always striving to do better. Yeah. And I mean, we have our ups and downs, but we've got great managers.
That's good.
And I haven't had a lot of turnover with that. And that's been a blessing.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm so fascinated with all of those locations. What does a typical day, week in your life look like in terms of where you spend your time?
I try to go to New York once a month and spend 3 or 4 days. Yeah. And I've got managers at every location. I try to make their reward meetings once a month to every location. And I've had a lot of personal stuff this year, so I haven't been able to be in the stores working like on my feet. But now I'm kind of back in the saddle again. But because you're running 7 locations and running a show, I have a lot of office time. I have to be there. There's just a lot of financials that have to be done, and just a lot of HR and that's the thing. You're never big enough. I always say this, you're never big enough. You always think, well, if I had one more store, I could have our own HR specialist, So a lot of it falls back on me and Mary and my office manager, Susan, who I couldn't live without, and my team, but we do a lot of work, a lot.
I would assume you have meetings with your core team pretty regularly too, just to keep, because otherwise, I mean, you can't be at every location every day. So I mean,
I have a core team and they're called leads.
Oh, okay.
And they all there's leads in every department, and then they meet with me, and I try to touch base with them. And right now we kind of have our dance. Yeah. And and then I have a marketing director now that we kind of set and go over, well, what's our strategy for this? And we're constantly evolving and learning.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. As you work with them, how would they describe your leadership style?
Oh, I don't, you sent me that note and I was like, oh, that's going to be fun. I think I am kind of hands-on. They always keep me, they know I like to know everything happening.
Okay.
So, Mary always, she's like my district, and she's always telling me every little thing that kind of happens in the stores, if someone's not getting along, or if someone's got an illness, so I always feel like I've got a pulse, even if I'm not in the store that week, of what is happening. But definitely, I call it transformational. I'm always looking at how we could get better.
Yeah.
I'm never, and then they know it. I'll say, okay, this is how we need to get better. And sometimes I have to, and someone said, it was a new manager, and she said, I've told them that and I looked at them and I said, I've been coaching for 40 years.
Yes.
And that's not something that ever ends. I need coached.
No,
You've
exactly.
got to
We all
constantly
do.
get back on track.
Yes.
So it's never done. It's
No.
it's constant. Hey, you get at front desk, you get new front desk. How do you, train that
phone
person?
etiquette is something that is not intuitive for people now, because a lot of the younger individuals don't really talk on phones very much. So then you throw them into a work setting where they have to answer a phone, and it's like, you're not talking to your buddy.
You're not.
You're talking to a customer.
So it's constant. But again, I think I see the best in people.
Yeah.
And I want them, their success is our company's success. So anything they need, anything they think will make them better, I know they would tell you that I would give them the world.
Yeah.
And I bring in educators. I've sent them to different trainings in different cities. And
that's amazing.
But I want them to be the best they could be for what they want their life to be.
Yeah.
And definitely, I'm a person a leader that wants them to constantly think, how can we be better?
Yeah.
And I sit there and I list things. I wake up in the shower and think, I'm one of those like crazy people that then get on the phone and go, hey, that lead generation thing that we just did, let's do this and let's tweak this. So it's not, and I think you are who you are. My dad was a person that he was a safety kind of guy.
Oh, okay.
So I was like the daughter that he called me his good pain in the ass is what he called me. But I was always doing things that made him nervous and scared. And one time I was at a seminar where they talked about personality types. And there's a growth personality type. There's a secure, you probably know this with all your
personality.
You teach this. And it was like a light bulb went off. That I was like, no wonder my poor dad is always pulling my strings going, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Yes. And when I bought Albany, I never even told him because he was sick. And I was like, I'm not going to make that poor man, I'm not going to stress him out. And then he got mad because I hadn't told him. And I said, well, you get so upset. I'm not going to. But I realized that there's no changing me.
Yes.
And there's no changing him.
Yes.
What brings him comfort. Now, if I live that type of personality life, that would be suffocating to me.
Well, you wouldn't have 7 locations either.
And it would be a suffocation.
I wouldn't have a business at all.
Who I felt, because you do have to, like I said, you kind of live your life at the deep end of the ocean. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow and what the interest rates are going to turn into and what you might have to change. And it could be gone tomorrow. You make the best decisions that you can make. But it really shed a light that everyone has their own personality, and I couldn't make him any different than he was. And I think that helps me with my teams.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
That I can't, I have to love them and accept them where they're at and who they are. And
that's hard to do for a lot of people.
And you have to say, hey, listen, this person is always going to be happy just doing this.
Yeah.
But this person needs more expansion. And I think a leader has to have that emotional sense in my business.
Yes.
Of what each person needs.
Actually, I promise you in any business, they need that. Yeah. Across industries. But you're right. And you're right. It's not a one size fits all.
No.
And I think something that a lot of leaders struggle with is what I call stylistic feedback, where I don't like how you did something because it's not how I would do it. It's not that you did it wrong necessarily. It's just it's not how I prefer it to be done. And I see a lot of leaders where they'll struggle with people because they're just not like them personality wise usually. Well, I don't like this person. I don't agree with this person, or they just have such a different approach. And it's a lot of times, it honestly has nothing to do with the technical aspect of their job. It's just style. I don't like the style of which they did it. And that can be really dangerous, because if I try to get someone to adapt to my style and then I leave, and a new lead, you come in and maybe you have a different style, and then you're like, no, you're doing it all wrong. And it's like, but that's how Laura told me to do it, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I want you to do it this way. And then you leave and Justin comes in, and it's like, so I think we have to be careful as leaders that we're not trying to change people. And so I think that's a huge point that you're making, is loving them for them, but knowing them for them, and recognizing that some people are okay. You and I had a very similar childhood. My dad's an engineer. So same thing. I'd be like, Dad, can we do this? And he'd be like, no. Can we build a tree house? No. Can we, It's like every day my brain was doing the same thing as yours. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
And so there are some people that aren't going to be open to taking risks, and that's okay. There's room for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's hard sometimes to acknowledge that and be okay with that.
And not just risks, but just meeting them, when you work in a spa industry, a massage therapist is usually different than a cosmetologist. The personality types are different. Usually cosmetologists are a little bit more vivacious and more, and sometimes cosmetologists are more, massage therapists or therapists in general are more quiet. And it's just, you have to meet people where they are and what their personality is, and what kind of an environment they want to be in.
Yeah, that's amazing. You've definitely had a lot of exposure to different personality types, I'm sure, over the years.
I have.
How many people are on your payroll, however you want to state it, but how many people are working for Team Tuscan?
Team Tuscan, over 200.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And I think that's been hard in the growth. As much as I love our team, sometimes I miss being with them, because when you're worried. But they all have, believe it or not, they all have access to my cell phone.
Really?
Every one of them.
Wow.
It's there. That if they can't resolve something or they need to talk, they can send me a message, they can call me, and I try to help, work through it. And someone says, well, that's not, and I'm like, not for me, because I want, and I think that's another thing about growth. I don't know that I want to grow bigger, because I feel now it's harder for me to be with them.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, and just what that evolution's been like for you, because when you first started with one location, obviously you could spend a lot more time with them. You could get to know them a lot better.
And my customer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love my customers. Yeah. And I still, like yesterday I was in Clarksburg, and it was, I just love because that's, when someone says, well, believe me, there's other businesses that are so much easier than this business. But I love what we do. I love when people feel good and they go out and they're glowing, and they have, like a lady was showing me her, she had nails done like the blue china, the blue, blue willow china. They had done her nails, and she was so happy. She was in her 70s. She had these blue willow, beautiful nails, and she was so happy leaving that day
Yeah.
and felt nurtured and all of that, and it was a good feeling to see. And she'd gotten her first tattoo. She was in her I mean, I love
She's
people.
having like a midlife crisis. It sounds
she
like.
just was a character. She just loved it. But,
That's awesome.
I mean, how could you? I always say, if I'm ever, get me out of the office and get me into the stores.
Yeah.
And when I see our customers and seeing them go out feeling good, that's the best feeling.
That's what it's
I can
all
take a lot of
about.
hardship.
Yeah, that's so true. And honestly, that's a good message for people listening of the importance of taking time to do things like that for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I like getting my nails done. I talk with my hands.
Don't you feel better though?
I do. Yeah. And it just, you know, I know, especially when the economy is up and down and it's hard and these are the kinds of things that people cut. You know, I like getting massages, but I'm not going to do it anymore. Honestly, I get some of my best ideas when I'm getting a massage because first of all, only ever will do 90 minutes because 60 is just not long enough.
You're my one after my own heart.
Do 90 minutes.
I tell everybody that
once you do 90, you can't go back.
You're just relaxing.
Yes.
And then it's over at 50.
You've got to go.
You've got to do the 85.
Yes, absolutely. But honestly, when you think about it, it's quiet. There's no distractions. And just like people who get good ideas in the shower, right? Your brain is just free to kind of float wherever it wants to. And I like some of the best ideas I've ever had. I've gotten when I was getting a massage. So in my mind, it's a business investment.
Yeah, well, it really is. If you do the studies on just doing some relaxation and self-care, what it does for your cortisol levels, your wellness, the stress on your body. That's, you know, I could
not fluff.
I could go on and on with, you know, how and our therapists, they're so good. They are.
It's important. Well, as you think about, again, 20 plus years, because you had businesses before even your current one, I'm so curious to hear as you think back, lessons learned or things that have changed over time for you. So maybe things that you thought earlier in your career that you feel differently about, or just changes that you've noticed in the past, 20 plus years that would be relevant for where we are right now.
There's been so many changes. Well, the tattoos are one. I remember starting our spas in 2004, and that was in the handbook. You couldn't have a tattoo to work at the.
Oh, can you imagine?
Everyone has a tattoo, and that's not in our handbook anymore. So you have to change with the times, you know. And I, everyone says, well, the workers of today aren't. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that they're different. The worker of today is looking at more intrinsic happiness. And is that such a bad thing?
No.
I mean, that doesn't mean that they can't work hard.
That's right.
That's all I ask is work hard when you're at work.
Here.
But a lot of them want their time free. And that's that. And I don't think that management is for everyone, or that upper level where you're having to worry to take that home with you. But it doesn't mean that the worker of today is not a good, valid worker. And they want someone to nurture them, and the younger ones. And I hope that's one thing that our company does. We have a lot of veterans that are very nurturing leads, and they want them to succeed. And then, some of them get their heart broken if they end up leaving. But, you can't make someone stay at your company if that's something they want to move on. And I'm okay with that, because they're going to see.
The grass isn't always greener.
But until it's like someone that it's like a young, you have to let them go so that they can see. And then we've had many come back, and but things that I look back that has changed is that I would just trust myself a lot. I do trust myself a lot more than I did then, and I tell women that to trust theirself and not always doubt that someone knows better, because those people that you think know better, they're trying to figure it out too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I'm sure you've seen that in,
Yeah. They may seem confident on the outside, but they're scrambling too.
So use your smarts and get out there and explore and learn. And, you know, I think I don't know that I'll ever retire, because your brain would just go to mush, because I hope that doesn't happen for a long time, but I like learning. I like constantly being, there. My team has made jokes when they'll say, you'll be here in a wheelchair trying to, and I'm like, oh God, I hope I'm not in a wheelchair, but they know, they know that I will always try to be there as much as I can and everything. But,
I think that's what keeps you young, though, and keeps you driving. I mean, it definitely sounds like this has been your personality from the very beginning, and you have a lot of the qualities that make a great entrepreneur. I mean, you're very visionary. I can tell the way you talk through your business process over the years is that it seems like you've always been very visionary. You could see where it was going, but then you were willing to invest the way you needed to get it there. You were patient enough to say, okay, I see ultimately where we're going here, but it's going to take 1.5 years, or it's going to take 3 years, or whatever. You're not afraid to try something and see how it works. But then you also have those core values that seem like they've really carried you and guided you along the journey. And those seem more unchanged for you.
Yeah. I think having your core values, I tell my team that all the time. And the ones that I really think they do have those value, that core value of good people. And that's why I say it's nice to go into our teams and be with the teams, because when you like the people you're working with and they're just good people. And my mother went to one of the spas this week and had some service, and she's like, Cheri, they're so good and they're so kind. I go, they are. Yeah. They are, Mom. Yeah, they're wonderful. And I could go through all of them like that. And but I would say, just when you say looking back, is if you've thought about, I think women especially, and I'm not a man hater whatsoever. I've got a wonderful husband. I've got great sons. But I think women struggle more to be pleasers, and it holds them back a little bit. And it held me back when I was younger. And you think that everyone is going to be happy for you. And I remember seeing Oprah speak one time. And this was years ago. I took my mother to D.C. to hear her speak.
Oh, wow.
This was, probably 15, 16 years ago. And she said, you don't want to outdo, because when you do, you're going to get talked about. But most women can't stand to be talked about, and in a negative way. And that does. When I said that people made fun of me going back to aesthetic school and things, whenever you're challenging them, of why are you setting back, not fulfilling what you could be doing in your life, they will talk about you.
Oh, yeah.
And so, if anything, I hope I've challenged my teams to be independent women, no matter if it's a marriage or if it's their business career, to be okay with being them. Yeah. And I hope that is something that if I died tomorrow, they will feel. Aww. And because it's true. And it was like a little light bulb. You have those little light bulb moments that, wow, here's someone that had the success of Oprah Winfrey saying, yes, you're going to get talked about.
Oh, for sure.
And they're not going to like, and they're going to be saying, who's that girl thinks she is?
Yes. And the more
and
success
we don't like,
you have.
but we don't like that, do we, as a woman?
No.
Because I didn't. I want to be their friend. I want everyone to like me.
I know.
And
same.
Yes. But sometimes, but she said, whenever you challenge someone that maybe isn't working towards their potential, or no, they could have done something else in their life. So I don't want to go to bed when my life ends and think, oh, I could have done something more with my life,
Absolutely.
Right now, in this stage of the game for me, it's finding a little bit more balance because I've been such a workaholic. So I'm trying.
How's that working out for you?
I'm trying. It's tough, really tough. I mean, this summer I said I'm going to take one day a week and I'm going to take all my grandkids and staying with them at the pool because
that's good.
I was like, I need to, because I miss them. Yeah. And they're only going to be little once.
That's so true.
So it's going to be hard, but I'm going to do it.
You're like gripping
but I
the
love
desk
them. But I love them. But you know,
Yeah.
it's trusting my teams.
Yes.
It'll be okay.
Yes.
If I'm not, and they've been great. I can't say they haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's a good point too, is okay, if that's something that's important to you and that's your goal, then how can I make sure I set myself up for success and set everybody else up for success? That I do have a good team, I can trust them, and that's what ultimately will allow you to be comfortable to make that happen.
Yeah, I do have a great team.
That's
and
awesome.
it's nice. I mean, yeah, they're wonderful.
Wow. I am just so impressed by you and your story. I mean, you are very grounded and nonchalant about your success, but I just can't emphasize enough how big of a deal it is. I mean, we were talking before we hit the record button. It is very hard to go into business for yourself. It is hard to have multiple locations. It is hard to stay because you're in an industry that's very technology driven in terms of the latest and the greatest, and it's hard to stay ahead of the curve for as long as you have too. So I really want to commend you on your success.
Thank
because
you.
That's amazing.
Like I said, I never feel that I'm ever there, but I had a nurse one time that left, and we were having a discussion with somebody, a business person, and I was real upset, and I said, this doctor, they basically, it was anytime you are in business, you go through things like that. And I was kind of down, and he said, Cheri, anyone can start something. It's the longevity and the staying power.
Yes.
And I never thought about it like that.
Yes.
That it is that you have the staying power in a business as a leader. I mean,
huge.
Like the times crying at the dumpster and crying out the back door so your team doesn't see you falling apart.
Right.
During COVID, that was very, you talk about a service industry that
no one's coming in.
Got beat up. And, I was in my uncle's race building. He has the racing team up on 79, and we were building partitions, and he was having his team weld partitions between our hair stations so that when our customers came in, they had little cubicles. And I was designing these things, and people were calling me across the country, can you make this? But yes. And I mean, it was just. But
look at how you adapted.
We adapted.
Yeah.
And I think that's what leaders do. And you just get in there, and things ended up turning out, but you didn't know they were going to turn out.
No.
You were, but again, that's where you better have your core values, because if everything came to the halt and you have to start over, you better be happy who you are starting over.
Exactly. But like you said, if you can lay your head down at the end of the day and still feel good about who you are and the decisions you made. Yeah, everything on top of that's just gravy, right? Yeah. It takes a long time to get there.
It does. It does. And I remember when the governor shut down, not to go back, but here's these teams, and you're like, how are you going to make payroll? And how are you going, and what are they, because they weren't announcing anything of, they're going to get a stipend, or
you're right. There was this time frame there.
It was just, I still want to cry because it was so emotional.
Yeah.
Seeing all of my team. It was so emotional. And you're standing there thinking, what are these 200 people going to do? And it was hard because none of us knew anything at that time, but it ended up all working out, and that's where you have faith. And
and you survived that.
You survived it.
My gosh. What a tremendous
what
a tremendous story that you have. And I'm just so honored that you came on to share it with us. Thank you. Anything that we haven't talked about that you were hoping that I would ask you?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, you want to do a lightning round?
Okay.
All right, well, this is 60 seconds to answer as many open-ended questions as you can about you, so it shouldn't be too hard. All right, here we go. What season best fits your personality?
Summer.
Yes.
Summer, sunshine and fun. Just I get so dreary in the winter. Yes.
Me too. What's your most used emoji in text?
Oh, it's a joke because it's the thumbs up and the heart.
Oh, I love it. Okay. What's something about you that surprises people when they first hear it?
Oh, something about me that surprises people. Oh, gosh, I'm not really sure.
I think it's surprising that you have video stores. I wouldn't have guessed that.
And that I was a school teacher. Yeah. And they're like, you're a school teacher?
Yeah.
And I think that is
wild.
Something. And that I have 13 grandchildren.
Oh, my goodness.
And I raised one. And
my goodness. So. Yeah. No wonder you need to take a day off to spend time with them. Fill in the blank. I spend too much money on
clothes.
Yes.
I love clothes.
Yeah, and your locations are dangerous because not only do you offer services, but you have lots of products that people can buy.
Yeah.
Dangerous. I'm like, I just got to walk in and not look.
Yes.
Well, thank you again so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I hope I've answered something. I'm not sure any specific definition of leadership, but...
Yeah. You know. Well, I didn't ask you that. Would you like to share if you have a specific definition of leadership? That's always a question I ask, and I failed to ask that.
I know you did ask it. I think transformational fit me.
Yeah. Very good.
Try to see the best and work with your teams.
And never stop. I think that's the thing about transformation, right? It makes me think of the old Transformers. My brother was really into those when they first came out. And always changing.
No, I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Until next time, shine bright, everyone.